Okay, so our fourth speaker is Dr. Rumintha Wickramasekera. I hope that I pronounced that correctly,
Yes,
from
thank you.
QUT. The theme for Rumintha's presentation is Australia Best Practice Examples of Transdisciplinary Research Tackling Global Challenges. And his title is Case Studies of Understanding Sustainability and Market Success of Japanese Firms Living Beyond the Third Generation. I'm very excited to listen to you today, Rumintha, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining my presentation. I must give credit where credit is due. I came across this because of my good friend and colleague, Professor Makoto Kanda of Meiji Gakuin University. Now, you may have heard of the saying that the first generation starts the business, second generation builds it up, and the third generation destroys it. So the country that has the largest number of firms that have survived the third generation curse is actually Japan. In fact, until the global financial crisis, Kongobumi Construction was the oldest company in the world. It was more than 1,300 years old and into the 39 generations. So this is one part of the project because there's multiple aspects to this. Some of my research students are looking at longevity. I am looking much more at how we can bring in new perspectives in terms of sustainability into the classroom. Now, I had the enormous privilege and honor of partnering with around 1,500 students per semester for over a decade. And I was wondering in this internationalization class that I was teaching, how I could bring different perspective, different cultures into the classroom. So when we look at what's happening in Australia, as you know, and in Japan and many other developed countries, the average lifespan is about 80 years. But actually for firms, they tend to be much less, and mortality comes much earlier, especially for small to medium-sized enterprises. And when we had the pandemic, and before that, a number of global financial crises, the failure rate was even higher. Now, where we are in Queensland, essentially the backbone of our economy is small to medium-sized enterprises. And if you go to Japan, if you go to the United States, even in China, we can say that really the bedrock, the foundation of our economies tend to be small to medium-sized enterprises. So if they operate in a sustainable manner, then it will have a major impact in terms of climate and in terms of some of the millennial goals that we are trying to achieve. So the research question was really looking at how have firms not only survived over 3 generations, but achieved market success in a sustainable manner. So what I used to do is, of course, invite interesting people from Japan to come along and present to our students in terms of learning from our Japanese friends and colleagues. So they have this unique concept, which is talking about continuity, which is unchanged, and then change. So it's almost like a contradiction, but what they're talking about is, unlike the Western concept of profit maximization for firms, what they're saying is we must maintain certain things as constant. So as you know, our Japanese friends have a tremendous respect for the environment. there are religious aspects to that as well. If anyone's ever been to the wonderful Japan, you know how much they are into recycling, etc. So it's been embedded in these so-called Shinese firms that one should have certain constants, such as respect for the environment, but at the same time, if one was to survive long term, there must be certain aspects of change. So what are some of the things that must be maintained? Things like integrity, credibility, the quality of one's product, goodwill. So if you're looking at from a business sense, your brand will have these intangible assets. Now then, we live in a ever-changing world. Ideally, we should leave the planet as we found it, or in a better shape. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to achieve that for a long time, but it still remains a very laudable goal. So how do we cater for this change? So we're trying to adapt to the trends of the times. So development of product lines, sales promotions, new channels. But at the same time, one must think about the sustainability aspect of it. So when these companies actually develop new product lines, they're always thinking, how can we do that in an environmentally sustainable manner? How can we do that in a more efficient manner? They're not about profit maximization. In fact, Dr. Yasumura, now he is the 16th president of a sake brewery, but he's a highly educated gentleman. In fact, his PhD was in solid state electronics. So before he became and took over his family business, he's actually gone out there and become very, very aware of the technologies that can be used in his firm in terms of improved productivity, production, etc. Now, I think our students are very, very important. They're the future. So I had the enormous privilege before the pandemic of taking my students to Japan on visits. I'm featuring a number of students a few years back, because now I'm having them as guest speakers in my class, talking about what they actually learned from their visits to Japan, and in terms of what they gained from talking to these very long-lived firms. So I like to highlight two students who recently came along and presented to my class, Damien and Rebecca, wonderful ambassadors for QUT. And it was really wonderful to see that they have embedded some of these ideas that they gained in terms of their business as well. So they are running businesses that are very sustainable. Now you can see these Japanese firms have survived for a long time. So Ibusen, if you actually watch the wonderful Tokyo Olympics, you would have seen the Ibusen fans being featured in one of the performances. This company has been in existence since 1590. So this is a collaborative approach, because when you collaborate, as some of the previous presenters said, you can actually do things much more efficiently. I must confess, and I'm very sorry about this, my Japanese is next to none, so to speak. So we rely on our Japanese students to actually help us, and our Japanese colleagues. So this has been a wonderful collaboration where we use our resources to the betterment of our students. And this is just an example from a few years ago. Now, Mr. Nobu Yoshida is a very prominent business person in Edo Street, in one of the oldest part of Tokyo. And he actually presented to our students. And what he was explaining here is that businesses go in cycles. So when you have an upturn, you can almost predict that there will be a downturn, and so on. So the idea is not to indulge and profit maximize when you're in an upturn, but you actually need to be mindful that there will be a downturn, but in terms of the oscillation, you continue to grow, but that is done in a sustainable manner. Thinking about the environment, thinking about society at large, thinking about your employees. So it's not about profit maximization. In fact, their philosophy is that they're willing to compromise a bit of their profit to make sure that the firm runs in a sustainable manner. And I think that's a very important concept that we can learn from our Japanese colleagues, because unfortunately, the international business theories that we have tend to be less than environmentally friendly and less than sustainable in their nature. So it's important that we bring in some of these other perspectives. So what can we learn and what can we share with our wonderful students in terms of the Japanese experience? So these shinase firms, and not every firm is given the title of a shinase, they must be run in an honorable manner. And these companies should have survived the third generation curse, and they need to think about long-term thinking, coupled with respect for environmental and societal needs. So they're very conservative in financing. They don't borrow money and invest in the paper game, so to speak. They are concerned about their histories, their stories, in terms of promoting to the marketplace. Of course, to be sustainable, one must learn from your customers. So they do that extremely well. And of course, if you want to be sustainable, you are embedded in a network of firms. So if, it makes sense for them to share their information with their suppliers. Because after all, the inputs that go into their business need to be of a very high quality if they want to maintain that quality and the environmental sustainability as well. It's very important to protect the core and unique strengths of the firm, as I've mentioned earlier with Dr. Yasumura, who talked about the concept of unchanged and change. Another very important thing is they invest in the developing employees by emphasizing leadership and succession. So when we had the lockdowns, what happened is many of the shinase firms actually trained their employees. They went and revamped their production facilities and so on. So when we opened up again, these companies were able to bounce back very, very quickly with very highly trained employees, and they were able to ride the curve up much better than firms in many other countries. Another very important thing is, of course, maintaining the strong relationship with the local community. A business is a part of the community. So the business has got to make sure that they contribute to the well-being of the community. And the well-being means running a business in an environmentally sustainable manner, not polluting, and making sure that the business is a going concern, because when businesses fail, there are very, very negative ramifications for society at large. So here are the advantages of this project. Very briefly, efficient use of resources, because we actually share this among colleagues, both in Japan here and in fact with colleagues in the United States. It brings in new perspectives to the classroom. And of course, clearly demonstrate the value of sustainability, because students can see that there are these firms that have survived for hundreds of years by employing sustainable means. So this is how it's embedded in the classroom. I won't go into great detail. There is a paper that has been published. And so thank you very much. And I want to thank my Japanese colleagues as well. This is a true collaboration between our students at QUT, at Meiji Gakuin University, and business people both in Japan and Australia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rumintha. This is actually quite close to me and my heart as well. I have Japanese permanent residency. My husband is half Japanese. I have a Japanese last name. You can probably see that. Kitano. So
Yes.
Arigato gozaimasu, as you've written there on the screen. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, and really makes me homesick for Japan. I open up questions to everybody, but I might just have a quick comment and say that I love the idea, or your idea, of continuity, incorporating integrity, credibility, quality, and goodwill. And I also think it's such an interesting idea about this living beyond the third generation. If I don't have any questions, I might just very quickly ask you, did you have any challenges? Did you encounter any challenges during the collaborative process at all, and how were they addressed?
Not really. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy working with my Japanese friends and colleagues. In fact, I'm going off to Japan pretty soon in 2 weeks' time. So not at all. It's been an absolute dream run to work with my Japanese counterparts. I find them to be incredibly good, very, very generous. It's been a very positive experience for myself.
Excellent.
And even more for my students, because now, as you can see, I've got a lot more gray hair than when we started the project. And students are coming back and telling us about the value of what they gain from this collaboration with their Japanese colleagues, and those friendships have lingered.
There's actually a question in the chat from John. He asks, do you think that deflation in Japan over the last 20 years has affected businesses closing down? And Myra's also added about the falling birth rate and impact on business continuity. So maybe if you could quickly, we only have 1 minute, but maybe if you could just give a quick comment on that.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things is when you go to rural Japan, it's been decimated. So some villages, there's hardly anyone there. So it is a major issue. But I think our Japanese friends need to find a uniquely Japanese solution. So I think it's not something that somebody from outside can suggest. But there's still this commitment about the change I've seen is, in the past, it's always the male that would take over running of this business. That's radically changed. Now we have a lot more female CEOs that are taking over the businesses and actually running them in a very successful manner. I know the economic difficulties, but I think I have a lot of faith in our Japanese friends.
Wonderful. Well, ask anybody else to send questions through to Rumintha, and hopefully he'll be able to answer them at another time. But thank you so much again for being here. Really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you very much, Natasha, and thank you.